Commander James Reed stood at the viewing window of the Galactic Alliance headquarters. His tall frame cast a long shadow across the polished floor. Stars shone in the blackness beyond the glass. 3 years on this space station, and the sight still took his breath away. But today, those stars seemed dimmer. News had reached the station that another world had fallen. "Commander Reed," a voice called from behind him. "The Council is gathering. Your presence is required." Reed turned to see Trell, the blue-skinned assistant to the High Council. Even Trell's normally calm face showed signs of worry. 3 planets in 2 weeks, Reed said. "How is that even possible?" Trell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "That is what the Council must discuss. Please, follow me." As they walked through the curved hallways of the station, Reed noticed the fear. Every alien they passed moved quickly, heads down. Some carried boxes of belongings. Many were leaving. Reed had come to the station as Earth's first diplomat to the Galactic Alliance. Humans were newcomers to space travel, having only discovered faster-than-light technology 30 years ago. The Alliance, a group of over 200 alien species, had welcomed Earth with polite interest but little real respect. Primitive but promising was how the Alliance report had described humans. Now Reed wondered if being primitive might be an advantage. The council chamber was a huge round room, with seats for representatives of every major species. Today, nearly a third of those seats were empty. High Chancellor Vox, a tall insect-like being, stood at the center platform. His voice, translated through Reed's earpiece, sounded tired. 3 more worlds have gone silent. The Void Hunters have destroyed the Palaxian defense fleet. The Durrani colony is lost, and now Eltar Prime has fallen. Gasps filled the room. Eltar Prime was one of the most advanced worlds in the galaxy. "What exactly are these Void Hunters?" Reed asked, standing to speak. As the newest member of the Alliance, he had no fear of appearing ignorant. "My government needs complete information if we are to prepare." Chancellor Vox's compound eyes turned toward Reed. "They are death itself, Commander. An ancient species that hibernates for thousands of years. When they wake, they consume. They take what they need, resources, energy, technology, and destroy everything else." "They've come before?" Reed asked. An older alien named Grell, with skin like wrinkled bark, stood slowly. 3 times in recorded history. The last time was 8,000 years ago. Half the known galaxy was wiped clean of life. "How were they stopped then?" "They weren't," Grell said simply. "They took what they wanted and went back to sleep." Reed felt a chill. "But surely with all the military technology the Alliance has developed." "We have tried," cut in General Drav, the head of Alliance forces. The 4-armed warrior slammed a fist on the table. "Our best ships, our strongest weapons, they mean nothing. The Hunters' shields absorb energy weapons. Their ships self-repair. They learn and adapt to every tactic within hours." Reed looked around the room. "So what's the plan?" "Evacuation. Hiding." The silence that followed told him everything. "You're giving up," he said in disbelief. 200 species, thousands of years of combined knowledge, and you're just surrendering. Chancellor Vox spread his upper limbs. "We are being realistic, Commander. The Void Hunters cannot be defeated. The wisest course is to preserve what knowledge and life we can, and wait for them to return to hibernation." "After they killed how many billions?" Reed demanded. "Trillions," Grell corrected softly. "But those who hide well enough may survive. Some always do." Reed couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Earth will fight." A sad smile crossed the Chancellor's face. "Your world has courage, Commander. But you don't understand what you face." "Then help us understand," Reed insisted. "Share everything you know about these hunters. Their technology, their patterns, their weaknesses." General Drav laughed bitterly. "Weaknesses? They have none." Reed stood his ground. "Everything has a weakness." After the meeting, Reed walked quickly back to his quarters. His mind raced. The Alliance, supposedly the greatest collection of intelligence in the galaxy, was surrendering without a real fight. His communication officer, Dale Thompson, waited in Reed's office. Thompson's young face was serious. "It's bad, isn't it, sir?" he asked. Reed nodded. "Worse than we thought. I need to send a message to Earth immediately." "The Alliance has restricted all communications," Thompson said. "They're saying it's to prevent panic, or to prevent anyone from actually fighting back," Reed muttered. He activated his computer terminal and pulled up the classified files he had access to as a council member. There was something wrong about all this. "Sir," Thompson said nervously, "what are you doing?" "The Alliance has dealt with these void hunters before," Reed said as he searched. "They know more than they're telling us." After an hour of searching, Reed found it. Hidden reports. Secret studies. The Alliance had detected the hunters' approach 3 years ago. They had been watching, gathering data, running simulations, all while telling no one. "They knew," Reed whispered. "They knew this was coming and said nothing." The reports contained detailed scans of hunter ships, analysis of their attack patterns, the composition of their technology, and something else, something the Council had denied existed. Possible weaknesses, untested theories about the hunters' biology and technology that might offer a way to fight back. "Thompson," Reed said firmly, "we're going to break Alliance law. I need to send all of this to Earth." Thompson's eyes widened. "That's treason against the Alliance, sir." "The Alliance has already given up," Reed said. "Earth deserves a chance to fight." Thompson hesitated, then nodded. "I'll help, sir." They worked through the night, compiling the data and finding a way around the communication blackout. As dawn light from the nearby star filtered through the window, Reed prepared the final transmission. "Humanity has always faced threats we weren't supposed to survive," Reed told Thompson. "Ice ages, plagues, world wars. Each time, we've adapted and overcome. Do you really think we can beat something the entire Alliance fears?" Thompson asked. Reed looked at the images of the void hunter ships. Massive black vessels shaped like arrowheads, surrounded by smaller craft that swarmed like insects. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I know we'll fight. And sometimes, that makes all the difference." He pressed the transmit button, sending the classified data across the stars to Earth. Whether it would be enough, he couldn't say. But he had given humanity a chance the rest of the galaxy had already given up on. The shadow was descending. But for the first time since the Void Hunters had emerged from their long sleep, someone was about to stand against the darkness. The message from Commander Reed arrived on Earth at 3:17 a.m. By 3:45, the President's Emergency Council was assembled. General Laura Hayes pushed her gray hair back from her face as she studied the data on her tablet. The room was silent except for the soft hum of air conditioning. "And we trust this information?" she finally asked. "Reed is one of our best," said Admiral Wilson. "If he risked his position to send this, it's real." The President looked around the table at the 12 men and women who made up Earth's defense leadership. Their faces were grim in the low light. "How much time do we have?" he asked. "Based on the hunter's current path," Admiral Wilson said, touching a control to bring up a star map, "they'll reach our sector in about 3 years. 3 years to prepare for something that has wiped out civilizations thousands of years more advanced than ours," General Hayes said. The President's eyes hardened. "Then we'd better get started." Dr. Marcus Foster hadn't expected visitors at his remote cabin in the mountains. He especially hadn't expected a military helicopter to land in his yard at dawn. When General Hayes stepped out, Foster's stomach dropped. It had been 5 years since the government had shut down his research. 5 years of quiet exile after they called his weapons designs too dangerous to pursue. "Dr. Foster," Hayes said, walking up to his porch. "The world needs you." Foster laughed bitterly. "The world decided it didn't need my work. Or did you forget shutting down my lab?" Hayes didn't smile. That was before we knew about the Void Hunters. She handed him a tablet. Foster's eyes widened as he read. "This is real?" he asked, looking up. "Very. And we need weapons that can fight them." Foster looked back at his cabin. 5 years of fishing and reading, of telling himself the quiet life was enough. "I'll need a team," he said, "and resources, more than you've ever given a project before." Hayes nodded. "You'll have it. We're calling it Project Bullwark, Humanity's Shield." Captain Lisa Bell had never seen anything like the facility they'd built for Project Bullwark. Deep underground, protected by layers of rock and security systems, it sprawled for miles. "Impressive, isn't it?" said the man walking beside her. Jake Wilson was a civilian scientist, but he moved with a soldier's awareness. "They built this in 6 months. What exactly do they expect us to do here?" Bell asked. "Save the world, Captain." Wilson smiled, but his eyes stayed serious. "Or rather, you're going to figure out how to fight these things, and I'm going to figure out what makes them tick." Bell had been pulled from active duty commanding a space cruiser. Wilson had been studying alien biology at a university. Now they were part of Foster's handpicked team. "In here," Wilson said, opening a door. The room beyond was massive. In the center stood a holographic display showing what Bell recognized as an alien ship. Around it worked dozens of people at computer stations. At the far end, Dr. Foster was arguing with someone. "The energy requirements are impossible," the other scientist was saying. "Then we'll need to make the impossible possible," Foster replied. He looked up as Bell and Wilson approached. "Ah, the final pieces of our puzzle. Welcome to humanity's last stand." 6 months into the project, they had their first breakthrough. Bell stared at the attack data that Reed had smuggled from the Alliance. "There's a pattern here," she said. "The hunters always attack in the same formation. They never adapt their basic approach." "Why would they?" Foster asked, looking up from his work. "It's always worked before." "Because it's not tactical," Bell realized. "It's biological. They can't change it." Wilson rushed over. "Show me." Bell pointed to the screen. "Look at the timing. The smaller ships move exactly 17 seconds after the main ship signals. Every time. No variation." Wilson's eyes widened. "A hive mind with a signal delay. That's why they're so coordinated but still predictable." "Can we use that?" Foster asked. Bell nodded slowly. "If we can predict their movements precisely, we can be where they aren't. Hit them when they're vulnerable." "Better yet," Wilson said excitedly, "if it's a biological signal, maybe we can disrupt it." For the first time since the project began, Foster smiled. Now we have something to work with. Around the world, factories converted to war production. Space elevators worked nonstop, lifting materials to orbital shipyards. Underground shelters were dug into every continent. A global defense system of satellites and automated platforms formed Earth's first line of defense. Behind it, a fleet of warships took shape, designed specifically to fight the Void Hunters. Foster worked 18 hours a day, refining weapons that could penetrate hunter shields. Wilson mapped the biological structure of the hunters from the limited samples in Reed's data. Bell developed battle tactics that no conventional military would ever use, because humans weren't fighting the conventional enemy. 2 years into preparations, a message arrived from the Alliance. Reed's face appeared on the main screen, thinner than before, his eyes tired. "The Void Hunters have changed course," he said. "They've detected your preparations somehow. A scout fleet is heading toward Earth. They'll arrive in 3 months." Foster looked at Bell and Wilson. "We're not ready." "We'll have to be," Bell said. "How many ships can we deploy now?" Admiral Wilson checked his data. 7 cruisers, 36 fighters. Only 2 with the new weapon systems fully installed. "Then that's what we use," Bell said. "We need to show these hunters that humans aren't easy prey." The battle took place just beyond Mars. 7 human ships against 20 hunter vessels. On the command deck of the lead ship, Captain Bell watched the enemy approach. The hunter ships were black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. They moved in perfect formation. "Remember the pattern," she told her crew. 17 seconds. We hit them at 16. The hunter ships fired first, energy beams lancing across space. 2 human ships exploded immediately. "Hold," Bell ordered, though her hands gripped the arms of her chair. "Hold." The main hunter ship signaled. Bell counted. "Now." The human ships fired, not at the hunters' current positions, but where they would be in 1 second. For the first time in their ancient history, the Void Hunters were caught by surprise. 3 hunter ships erupted in flame. The others scattered, their perfect formation broken. "Again," Bell ordered. By the time the battle ended, 4 human ships were destroyed. But so were 11 hunter vessels, an unprecedented victory. As Bell's damaged ship limped back to Earth, a message came in from the Alliance station. "Captain Bell." Commander Reed's voice was filled with wonder. "The Alliance Council is asking how you did it. No one has ever destroyed a hunter ship before." Bell looked around at her injured but proud crew. "Tell them this is just the beginning," she said. "Humanity doesn't surrender, and we're just getting started." In the shadow of Earth, more ships were taking shape. Foster's weapons were being installed. Wilson's biological countermeasures were being loaded. The Void Hunters had ruled the galaxy through fear for countless millennia, but they had never met humans before. Now, they would learn to fear in return. 3 years into the war, the Void Hunters had learned something new: fear. Captain Lisa Bell stood on the bridge of the Defiance, Earth's newest and largest warship. Through the viewing window, she watched as hunter vessels tried to regroup after her surprise attack. 6 enemy ships drifted dead in space. The Defiance had lost only 2 support fighters. "They're doing it again," her first officer said, reforming into standard attack pattern. Bell shook her head. 3 years, and they still tried the same approaches. That was the first human advantage. The hunters couldn't adapt their basic strategies. Creatures of instinct and biological programming, they kept using tactics that had worked for thousands of years against other species. But humans fought differently, unpredictably, creatively. "Spring the trap," Bell ordered. Hidden behind a small moon, 3 more Earth ships powered up and launched a barrage of missiles at the hunter formation from behind. The hunters scattered, breaking formation again. "Now hit their flagship," Bell commanded. The Defiance fired its main weapon, a creation of Dr. Foster that targeted the exact frequency of the hunter's shields. The beam passed through like the shields weren't even there, cutting the hunter flagship in half. As the hunter ships retreated in disarray, Bell allowed herself a small smile. Another victory. In his lab deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Jake Wilson carefully studied the results of his latest test. The holographic display showed a simulation of Void Hunter communication signals, pulsing between the virtual ships. "Try the disruptor at 70%, he told his assistant. The assistant adjusted the controls. In the simulation, the signal between hunter ships became scrambled. The virtual hunter ships began moving erratically, some crashing into each other. Wilson nodded in satisfaction. "It's working. The hive mind disruptor is ready for field testing." The Void Hunters communicated on a biological level, their bodies generating signals that connected the whole fleet into one massive organism. Wilson had spent 3 years developing a way to jam those signals. If it worked in actual battle, hunter ships would be unable to coordinate their attacks. "Dr. Wilson," a voice called from the doorway. Commander Reed had returned to Earth 6 months ago, bringing valuable intelligence from the Alliance. "The Alliance representatives have arrived," Reed said. "They're very interested in your work." Wilson raised an eyebrow. "The same Alliance that said fighting was hopeless." Reed shrugged. "Things change when someone shows results." In the main conference room of Project Bullwark, Dr. Foster faced 5 alien representatives from the Galactic Alliance. They moved nervously, clearly uncomfortable being on Earth. "Your weapons should not work," said Trell, the blue-skinned alien who had once been Reed's assistant. "Hunter shields have never been penetrated before." "You were looking at the problem from the wrong angle," Foster explained. "Their shields block energy at most frequencies. We simply found the gap in their coverage." The aliens exchanged glances. "And these tactics," said another alien, a tall being with 4 arms. "Captain Bell's approach defies conventional military wisdom." "That's exactly why it works," Reed said. "The hunters expect conventional. Humans are anything but." The alien delegation had come after news spread of human successes against the hunters. 3 years ago, the Alliance had given up. Now they watched with growing hope as humans did what they thought impossible. "Will you share this technology?" Trell asked. "These tactics." Foster looked at Reed, then back at the aliens. "We will, but there's a condition." "What condition?" "You fight with us, not just alongside us," Foster said. "Alliance ships will follow human command in battle." The aliens bristled visibly. Many of their species were thousands of years older than humanity, with far more advanced technology in most areas. "You ask much," Trell said. "We offer survival," Foster replied simply, "and a chance to stop running." The Alliance Council debated for weeks, but in the end, the choice was clear. 20 Alliance warships arrived in Earth orbit, their captains reporting directly to the Human Defense Command. Bell spent months training alien crews in her unconventional tactics. Wilson taught their scientists how his hive mind disruptor worked. Foster helped them modify their weapons to target hunter vulnerabilities. "They're learning," Bell told Foster one evening as they reviewed battle plans. "Some of the alien captains are actually getting creative." Foster nodded. "Desperation is a powerful motivator." "It's more than that," Bell said. "We've given them something they haven't had in a long time." "What's that?" "Hope." The combined Human Alliance fleet scored victory after victory. Hunter forces that had seemed unstoppable now struggled against the unpredictable attacks. Worlds that had been targeted for consumption were successfully defended. But the Void Hunters were ancient and patient, and finally they recognized the source of their trouble. Commander Reed rushed into the command center where Bell, Foster, and Wilson were reviewing a recent battle. "They've changed course," Reed said, breathless. "All Hunter forces. They're converging on a single target." "Where?" Bell asked, though she already knew the answer. Reed's face was grim. "Earth. The entire Hunter Armada is coming here. Thousands of ships." Foster swore quietly. "How long?" 2 weeks, Reed said. "Maybe less." Bell turned to the strategic display. Earth's defenses were strong, but not strong enough for what was coming. "They've identified us as the main threat," Wilson said. "This is actually a good sign." "How is this good?" Foster demanded. "Because it means we've hurt them," Wilson replied. "For the first time in their existence, they feel threatened enough to abandon all other targets and focus entirely on one enemy." Bell nodded slowly. "We've gotten under their skin. Now we need to make them regret it." She began issuing orders, mobilizing Earth's full defense grid and recalling all ships. The Alliance vessels in orbit were integrated into the defense plan. As the largest fleet of Void Hunters ever seen approached the solar system, humanity prepared for the greatest battle in its history. The enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia was coming in full force. But they would find that Earth was unlike any world they had ever attacked before, because humans didn't know how to surrender. They only knew how to fight. And now, the entire galaxy watched to see if that would be enough. The first wave of Void Hunter ships appeared at the edge of the solar system on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, the outer defense platforms around Neptune were gone. In the main command center beneath Denver, General Hayes watched the tactical display with growing dread. Red dots representing Hunter ships poured into the solar system like a flood. The blue dots of human and Alliance vessels seemed tiny in comparison. "There are so many," she whispered. Dr. Foster stood beside her, his face pale in the blue light of the screens. "More than we expected. They must have called in forces from all over the galaxy. Captain Bell's voice came through the communication system. She was commanding Earth's main defense fleet from the flagship Defiance. Pluto Defense Station is gone, she reported. Neptune Station's not responding. Uranus perimeter is engaging now. On the main screen, they watched as the Hunter Armada moved methodically inward through the solar system. The outer planet's defense grids, built over the past 3 years, slowed them but couldn't stop them. How long until they reach Earth? Hayes asked. At current speed, 36 hours, an analyst replied. Foster looked at the general. We need to activate the spear. Hayes hesitated. The spear was Foster's newest weapon. A massive orbital cannon designed to fire a concentrated beam of energy directly into the heart of the Hunter fleet. It was powerful enough to destroy dozens of ships at once. But it was also untested. We don't have a choice, Foster insisted. We need to thin their numbers before they reach the inner system. Finally, Hayes nodded. Prepare the spear for firing. From his position on the lunar base, Jake Wilson watched as the massive orbital weapon powered up. The spear was a 2-mile-long cylinder pointed outward from Earth's orbit. Energy readings climbed as it charged. Energy levels at 80%, reported a technician. 90, 95. Wilson held his breath. This had to work. 100%. Firing. A blinding beam of light shot from the spear, cutting across the solar system toward the approaching Hunter fleet. On the tactical display, Wilson watched as the beam reached the enemy ships. For a moment, it seemed to work. A dozen Hunter vessels disappeared from the screen. Then alarms began blaring. Energy feedback. Someone shouted. The Hunters are reflecting the beam. Wilson watched in horror as the spear began to shake. Metal tore as energy ripped through the station. Then, in a blinding flash, Earth's greatest weapon exploded. The shockwave damaged 3 nearby defense platforms and 2 human cruisers. Over 5,000 people were killed instantly. And the Hunter fleet kept coming. Captain Bell ordered her ships to fall back to Mars orbit. The Void Hunters had broken through the outer defenses much faster than anyone had predicted. Their ships are adapting, her tactical officer reported. They're generating new shields that can absorb our weapons. Bell slammed her fist on the arm of her command chair. 3 years of successful tactics, and now the Hunters were finally learning. Deploy Wilson's disruptor, she ordered. The disruptor had worked in tests, scrambling the biological signals between Hunter ships. But as the device activated, the Hunter fleet barely slowed. No effect, the tactical officer said. They must have found a way to shield their communication signals. Bell's mind raced. Every advantage humans had developed was being countered. The Hunters had studied their enemy and adapted, something they had never needed to do before. All ships, execute Pattern Omega, Bell ordered. It was a desperate maneuver. A direct charge at the center of the Hunter formation. As the human alliance fleet accelerated toward the enemy, Hunter weapons fired. Ships exploded around Bell's flagship. Keep going, she commanded. Target their command vessel. The Defiance pushed forward, shields failing, hull breached in multiple places. They were almost in range of the main Hunter ship when a direct hit tore through the bridge. The last thing Bell saw was fire rushing toward her. On Earth, panic spread as the Hunter fleet destroyed the Mars defense grid. Millions of people rushed to underground shelters. Governments around the world implemented emergency protocols that had been rehearsed but never expected to be needed. In the command center, Foster received the news of Bell's apparent death with a stony face. The Defiance is destroyed, the communications officer reported. No sign of survivors. Foster turned to General Hayes. We're out of options. Hayes looked at the tactical display. The red dots were now approaching Earth orbit. How long until they reach us? Hours, Foster said. Maybe less. At that moment, a commotion broke out at the entrance to the command center. Commander Reed pushed his way through security, his uniform torn and dirty. I need to speak to Foster, he demanded. Now. Foster turned in surprise. Reed had been on a mission to the remains of the Alliance headquarters, searching for additional intelligence. No one had expected him back. "What is it?" Foster asked. Reed's eyes were wild with excitement. "I found it. The location of their central high ship." The room went silent. "Every hunter is connected to one central ship," Reed explained quickly. "A massive vessel at the edge of the galaxy. It controls the entire species." "How does that help us now?" Hayes asked. "Because that ship is their weakness," Reed said. "Destroy it, and the entire hunter collective loses cohesion." Foster stared at Reed. "You're saying there's a single point of failure for the entire species?" "Yes," Reed said, "but we'd need to get there to attack it. And it's heavily defended." The door opened again, and Jake Wilson rushed in, looking as if he hadn't slept in days. "I've completed it," he said, holding up a small cylinder. "The final version of the biological weapon." He placed the cylinder on the table. "This contains a virus designed specifically for hunter biology. It will spread through their hive mind connection and shut down their neural systems." Foster looked from the cylinder to Reed. "How do we get this to the central high ship?" "Someone has to take it there," Wilson said quietly, "and activate it manually inside the ship. The virus needs to be at the heart of their network to spread properly." The implication was clear. It was a suicide mission. Foster picked up the cylinder. "I'll go." Hayes shook her head. "We need you here." "There's no one else," Foster insisted. "Actually," Reed said, "there might be." The command center's main screen flickered to life. On it appeared the battered face of Captain Lisa Bell. "This is Bell," she said, her voice weak. "I'm on a captured hunter scout ship. Repeat, I have captured a hunter vessel." Foster's eyes widened. "She's alive, and she has a way to get past the hunter defenses." As the Void Hunter Armada entered Earth orbit and began their attack, a small flicker of hope appeared. One desperate mission, one chance to strike at the heart of the enemy. Earth faced its darkest hour. But in that darkness, the most human quality of all began to shine, the refusal to give up, even when all seemed lost. The small meeting room was silent as Dr. Foster outlined the plan. Only 5 people were present: Foster, Captain Bell, still bandaged from her injuries, Jake Wilson, Commander Reed, and General Hayes. "The mission is simple in concept," Foster said, pointing to a holographic map. "Bell will use the captured hunter ship to approach the central high ship. Wilson's biological weapon must be placed at the core of their neural network." Bell studied the schematics of the high ship that Reed had recovered. It was massive, nearly the size of Earth's moon. "Once inside," she said, "I'll need to reach this central chamber. That's where the main neural processor is located. The biological agent needs to be inserted directly into their system," Wilson added. "The casing will dissolve and release the virus into their network. Within minutes, it should spread to every connected hunter." General Hayes looked at Bell. "The chances of survival are..." "I know the odds," Bell interrupted. "It doesn't matter." Foster stepped forward. "I should be the one to go. You're needed to command our forces." Bell shook her head. "With respect, Doctor, I'm the only one who's flown a hunter ship, and right now we need you here to coordinate the defense of Earth." No one argued further. They all knew she was right. "How long will it take to reach the high ship?" Reed asked. "At the hunter ship's maximum speed, 17 hours, Bell replied. "By then, Earth will be under full attack." Hayes nodded grimly. "We'll give them the fight of their lives. Every minute we hold them here is another minute for you to reach the high ship." Bell looked around the room at her colleagues, her friends. None of them said what they were all thinking, that this was likely the last time they would see her alive. "We need a diversion," Bell said finally. "Something to draw attention away from my approach." Reed smiled faintly. "I think we can arrange that." The remnants of the human Alliance fleet gathered for one final stand. Ships from a dozen alien species joined with Earth's surviving vessels. They were outnumbered 10 to 1, but they were not fighting to win, only to distract. Foster watched from the command center as the combined fleet launched its attack. On another screen, a small blip showed Bell's stolen hunter ship slipping away from Earth, using the chaos as cover. "Good luck, Captain," he whispered. The battle for Earth intensified. Hunter ships broke through the orbital defenses and entered the atmosphere. Cities around the world came under direct attack. Defense platforms fired constantly, downing enemy vessels, but more kept coming. In the command center, Foster worked frantically to coordinate the global defense. Every minute they lasted gave Bell more time to reach her target. "Doctor," Wilson called, pointing to a screen. "Look at this." The display showed a hunter ship behaving strangely, moving erratically before crashing into another hunter vessel. "It's happening at multiple points," an analyst reported. "Hunter ships are showing signs of coordination failure." Foster's eyes widened. "The hive ship is distracted by our attack. Its control is slipping, which means Bell has a better chance of getting through," Wilson said. Foster nodded. "Keep fighting. Every hunter focused on us is one less protecting the hive ship." 17 hours after leaving Earth, Bell approached the massive hive ship. Her stolen vessel transmitted hunter identification codes, allowing her to approach unchallenged. The hive ship hung in space like a dark star, surrounded by a protective screen of hunter vessels. Bell's hands were steady on the alien controls as she guided her ship toward a docking bay. "This is Bell," she transmitted back to Earth. "I'm approaching the target. Beginning final approach." Inside the captured ship, she checked Wilson's biological weapon once more. The small cylinder was secured in a pouch at her waist. Her plan was simple: reach the central processor, plant the weapon, and escape if possible. The stolen ship docked with the hive ship. Bell took a deep breath and opened the airlock. On Earth, the situation grew desperate. Hunter forces had landed in major cities. Underground shelters were holding, but surface structures were being systematically destroyed. Foster watched the tactical displays, calculating how much longer they could last. The combined human alliance forces were fighting valiantly, but they were being overwhelmed. "Any word from Bell?" he asked. Reed shook his head. "Nothing since she docked." "Doctor," Hayes called. "We're losing Tokyo defense grid. London is under heavy attack. Beijing reports hunter ground forces approaching their main shelter." Foster closed his eyes briefly. They were running out of time. Inside the hive ship, Bell moved carefully through alien corridors. The ship was unlike anything she had ever seen. Organic technology blended with mechanical systems in ways that defied human engineering. Strangely, she encountered few hunter drones. Most seemed to be deployed in the attack on Earth. Those she did meet, she avoided by hiding in the shadowy recesses of the corridors. Following Reed's maps, she made her way deeper into the hive ship. Finally, she reached a massive door that pulsed with energy. Beyond it lay the central processor, the heart of the hunter network. The door was locked. Bell placed explosive charges at key points and took cover. The blast echoed through the corridor, but the door held. She placed her remaining charges and tried again. This time, the door cracked open. Bell squeezed through the gap into a vast chamber. In the center floated what looked like a giant brain, pulsing with blue-green light. Electrical discharges arced between it and the walls. As Bell approached, alarms began to sound. The hunters had detected her intrusion. She ran toward the central processor, drawing Wilson's weapon from her pouch. Hunter drones poured into the chamber. Bell fired her weapon, downing several, but more kept coming. She was hit in the leg, then the shoulder, but kept moving forward. With her last strength, she reached the central processor. As hunter drones closed in from all sides, Bell activated the weapon and thrust it deep into the pulsing mass. The cylinder dissolved, releasing Wilson's virus into the heart of the hunter network. On Earth, Foster watched in amazement as hunter ships suddenly froze in space. Some began drifting, colliding with each other. Others simply powered down. "What's happening?" Hayes demanded. Wilson was staring at his instruments. The virus, it worked. It's spreading through their network. All around Earth, hunter forces stopped attacking. Their ships hung motionless in orbit. Ground forces collapsed where they stood. Reed pointed to a different screen. Look. The image showed the distant high ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, explosions bloomed across its surface. The massive structure began to break apart. "Bell," Foster whispered. "She did it." 3 months later, Earth was rebuilding. The Void Hunters were gone. Their ships either destroyed or abandoned throughout the galaxy. The species that had terrorized the stars for millennia had been defeated by the newest spacefaring race in the galaxy. Foster stood at a window in the Alliance Council chamber. It had been rebuilt on Earth rather than at the old station. Around him, representatives of over 200 alien species discussed the future of the galaxy. Reed joined him at the window. "The Council has approved the memorial. It will be built in orbit, visible from the ground. A reminder of what we accomplished and what it cost." Foster nodded. Bell's sacrifice had saved not just Earth, but countless worlds across the galaxy. The final telemetry from the high ship showed that she had managed to reach an escape pod, but it had been damaged in the explosion. No trace of it had ever been found. "Do you think they'll come back?" Reed asked. "The hunters?" "If they do," Foster said, "we'll be ready." Outside the window, Alliance ships moved alongside human vessels in Earth orbit. The fleet that had once feared the hunters now patrolled the stars under human leadership. Humanity had proven itself not just as fighters, but as protectors. The galaxy that had lived in fear for millennia now looked to Earth for guidance. Humanity had responded to the greatest threat in history not with surrender or despair, but with courage and determination. And the stars were safer for it.